Welcome everybody to another Eqafe Google Hangout. Tonight we will be discussing the Eqafe interview, Our Purpose Has Left the Building. In the Reptilian series, you'll find this interview. It's also linked below. And tonight I have a guest with me. Her name is Kristina Salas. She is from the US, but she's living in Canada with her husband. Hi, Kristina.
Hey.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. And just to go over just a recap of what Eqafe is for all the newbies watching this hangout, if you are new. Eqafe is a educational type site where you can find tons of interviews, audio recordings on all sorts of different topics in your life. Anything that kind of comes up that you have questions about, curious about, really any topic that you can think of, you go to the site, you search it, and possibly something will pop up. More than likely something will pop up. If it doesn't pop up, then you can write the store, and Sunat Spies, the portal, the interdimensional portal who is bringing these interviews through, it will do an interview or take it into consideration to possibly do interviews on the subject, or you can do private interviews. There's a lot of choices there to figure out and get support on issues you may be having in your life. And this website is for self-development. The purpose of it is to support every human being to be the best they can be. So that's kind of the foundation point of the site. And there will be links below to check out more information if you're new to it and you want to see more. I also will place an interview hangout that I did with Sunat, the portal, so you can get more of an idea who she is, what she's about, and what she does as her life's work. So Kristina, before we get into the interview, I just want you to share a little bit about your perspective and how the Eqafe site has supported you over your process and lifetime.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, pretty much as you explained it, Eqafe has been amazing in terms of your life, and say you have an experience of like stage fright or anxiety or arguments in a relationship or money problems. It's like whatever you're dealing with, you can like really be specific and go to the website, and there is an interview on it, like guaranteed. There's like nothing they haven't covered, which is amazing because I know that at any moment, if I need some extra support, I know I can find an interview on that. So it's been really cool. And even times when I don't need, specific support, just listening to the interviews coming through on a weekly basis, it's like I find support and, in everything I listen to, even if it wasn't like specifically for me, it expands my ability to see things and to understand things, and it really adds a lot of value in terms of how I can look at this world because of how the interviews share their perspective of this world, and valuable. And then also being I do transcriptions for Eqafe as well, where we write out the interviews so that they can be translated into other languages, and that in itself even has been so wonderful because I really get to slow down with the interviews and really get a kind of closer listen and kind of can go over it more and really kind of integrate the information into me. And so that too has been so remarkable. And I'm so happy to be able to help the site as it's been so helpful to me.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, that's a cool point with the broadening of your perspective, because obviously each one has their own view of the world, and yeah, Eqafe and the portal, what comes through is something that is definitely expansive and supports with seeing like different points that like many times I'm like, oh man, I would have never considered that, or I would have never seen it that way. And yeah, it helps you to expand your view on something and thus understand more about yourself in this world. And
Yeah, and when
That's
you
so
hear
cool.
that too, it's like, oh, it's so simple. It makes so much sense, but you never considered it, you know? It's
Yeah,
so cool.
it's really cool. Yeah, so, all right, so let's get into this interview. Purpose has left the building. And what is your general perspective on the interview? Why you picked this interview? Why did you decide to pick it?
Yeah, so for me, the interview was like my life story, like the way that they describe people's relationship to purpose and how kind of purpose is placed in this world. I could so relate to it. It's been something I feel like I've walked my whole life as like kind of a core issue or theme in my life, and not always maybe been aware of it, but in the last couple of years, I would say it really, became like this huge, I want to say, burden that I was kind of dealing with in terms of my purpose. What is my purpose? What is my meaning in life? And so this interview was so cool because it was just like, yeah, that's exactly how it is for me. That's exactly what I went through. It's funny because it's usually the interviews are so timely for me anyway, where it's like I'm going through something and then an interview comes out and it's like, yeah, that's what I'm facing right now. This interview is kind of different because I've been walking through this purpose point for quite a while, and I have recently found in the last few months, 6 months or so, some stability with it and some clarity with it, and then the interview comes out. So it's more of like a cross reference for me. It's like a reflection of being able to listen to and be like, yes, I can so relate to that, was my experience. And what I and what the interview shares that we go through, and then what we can do to support ourselves within that. It was just like how I kind of walked my process. So it was a really cool cross reference for me to be like, okay, what I've been seeing and understanding and how I've been working through it, and the dimensions of it that I've dealt with, like comparisons and the emotional, like depression around it. Like those are dimensions I was working with. So it was a great interview for a cross reference for myself. See that, I've been on the right track, or I've been working with it in a way that is kind of how they placed it. One should kind of look at these things. So yeah, it was great.
That's very cool. Yeah, and it shows also within these interviews that there's like each one that listens will kind of get a cross reference to where they are at within their life or themselves within walking this subject matter of purpose, like who you are within the word purpose. Because when I listened to it, I kind of never focused on this point of purpose in my life. Like for myself, I always kind of generalized my purpose. Like my purpose was more to be part of like the solution in this world. So that's kind of what I've always geared myself towards. But I never really looked at it in the sense of, okay, who am I within the word purpose, and do I like some of the points that came through, do I see myself in that way? So it kind of brings up questions that within yourself you might have never looked at, or it could be something in the back of your mind that you've kind of looked at it or kind of let it float around, but this kind of brings it into focus and makes you really look at it and decide and figure out what you want to do with the interview. And it gives you support too to walk it. So yeah, so that's kind of cool. Okay, so how have you walked this word or seen this word purpose before starting process or before starting to walk with the destiny process or Eqafe?
Well, so like I said, purpose has always been kind of a theme in my life, and I grew up, not religious or spiritual. There was no like conventional. I went to church the first like maybe 5 or 6 years of my life. And my mom was a little bit more into spirituality, and my dad's side was a little bit more religious. So I had some influence in terms of that. And for me, it was like in both kind of contrasts, purpose and meaning and a life path was existent. Like there was a reason why you were here, and there was, specific things you were to do, and so that's kind of was always existent within me. And as I got older and into my teenage years, I considered certain things to be maybe my purpose. It was like, well, I'm going to do this. This is going to be my purpose. That's what I'm meant to do in this world. And, into my 20s, I pursued certain avenues that I thought, well, this is my purpose for sure. That didn't work out, and decided that, no, that's not my purpose. But it was always just kind of this thing that, like, I really did believe that, I came and chose to come into this life for a reason, and that there were certain things that I was supposed to do, and there was, something specific just for me. It kind of played a little bit on that ego aspect of, being special, and I had a special purpose, and I had there was something. And so when I came across Destiny in 2009, it was like, this is it. This is my purpose. This is what I meant to come here to do. Like it kind of clicked for me in the sense of, I was always looking kind of outward. What is my purpose? Where am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be involved with? Like, I was just like waiting for this thing to start. And then when I came across Destiny, to me, it was like, oh, this is it. This makes complete sense. And for a while, it really grounded me in terms of finding purpose in dealing with my day-to-day living and who I am, and kind of stabilizing myself and relationships, and kind of it did support in a sense of, I stopped looking outward for a purpose. Yeah.
Cool.
And then, yeah, I could go on in terms of how that developed, but maybe we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And for me, purpose was more something that I didn't really consider to be something that was important to me. I was more stuck in my own mind, bull BS, like just lost, basically.
Yeah.
So I was like, for me, like you said, I was always waiting. Okay, what's next for me? Where's life gonna push me next? And I just kind of follow. And so, yeah, it was never something that I focused on, looked at, considered that, okay, I can possibly make something of my life. Like I can possibly affect some kind of change in this world that is better or best, or create some kind of, or I don't know. I never really looked at it in terms of, I always had like a low self-esteem or low self-confidence in myself. So I never saw myself being able to get to a point of success, like real success.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's where I was kind of at, and that's who I was before this point. Let's go into the point of Kristina.
Sorry, before you go into that, that's totally was my experience too. It was like, any sense of self, like I can actually make my life something, something more, something great, or I never considered that was something that I could do. I always believed that purpose as an external force was going to come along and kind of create that for me. It was like I was just going to walk into it, and then all of a sudden my life would be so great and everything would just fall into place. Purpose was, I never saw myself as being able to, like you said, low self-esteem, where it's like I alone can't do anything. I need this point to kind of activate already, so that my life can start already.
Yeah, like I need like a partner to be able to support me, so I can kind of just live my life in La La Land. That's kind of where I was at, like not focused at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we have been walking process, you've been walking now since 2009, you said, what kind of change with this word purpose? And you can bring in some of the insights that the interview shared, how that supported you to kind of see maybe purpose differently, or how did you walk it before even this interview?
Yeah, so, well, Yeah, so like I said, when I first came across Destiny and I was introduced to, self-forgiveness and, self-honesty and self-responsibility was a big thing. For me, it was like, okay, this is what I was waiting for. This was kind of the purpose for me to walk this process, because I could see how, who I am individually, the responsibility I have to myself, and how that impacts this world. And so that to me was, okay, that's it. And I was so content, and I was, walking my process. And the years passed, and it's, since 2009, and I moved to Canada about 2 years ago now, and I noticed not too long after I got here that purpose point started to come up again, where I felt like I didn't have a specific interest or specific pull towards anything in particular. And I saw a lot of people around me did, like my husband is an artist, and it's such a specific thing for him that, he has in terms of where he focuses a lot of himself and his development into. And other people were doing education or, sales or, psychology, or like it seemed like people around me had specific things that they were really interested and passionate about and wanted to pursue. And for me, I didn't have that. And so I felt, I started going into comparisons and feeling like, well, what's my point? What's my, where am I going to contribute? But I really defined it as a purpose, and I don't know if you can tell by how I'm saying it, but it was always something outside, like something I did was going to be my purpose. I equated it a lot to career, work and stuff. And so yeah, I went into comparisons a lot, and that was like a big trouble spot for me, because, once I started working on the comparisons in relation to purpose, I could see years of comparisons, years of one single thought that was a comparison in nature that really disempowered me and placed me in a position where I defined myself as inferior or less than, or something was wrong with me, or so yeah, so comparisons was the big point for me to work through with this whole purpose point. And yeah, it's been I feel like it's been such a big point, like I went to go write about this recently, since I listened to the interview, and it was like, it's such a long story. I feel like, it's like so much has happened, and there's so many like dimensions to just this one word, purpose, and like everything that exists within it was so much, and I feel like I had to go through so much within just this one word. It's
Interesting.
it would be like a 4-series hangout, like 4-series hangout, I swear. But yeah, so comparisons is a big point, and realizing that, like, that search that I had continued, that of looking outside of myself for something, like something outside of me as a purpose was going to somehow complete me or fulfill me or make me satisfied and happy. And it was a hard lesson to realize, like, that none of that's ever going to work. I have to create purpose for myself. Like, I have to give myself purpose, like, it's back to the point of, I have to create it for myself. I can't have something give it to me, because what happens if that thing disappears and then I'm just left without it's like, so
yeah, there's also within, like, what you're saying, like, you can't define yourself within one purpose, say. So if you're looking, okay, my purpose is going to be this career, this is all I'm going to do, this is who I'm going to be, you will eventually, go into a point of diminishment or anger or blame or things like that, which is all points of external separation. You're not actually taking responsibility for yourself within that point, but kind of disempowering yourself within that. So
yeah, that's exactly what I realized too, was I saw myself at a disadvantage because I didn't have a specific focus like I saw so many other people have, but I wasn't realizing the gift I had like I had an open space to explore. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to, develop? What do you want to be, interested in? Like, go find out, And it took me a while to realize that. And but yeah, that was essential too, because it's like we look at ourselves and we think, well, we're different from this person, so that makes us bad, and somehow that person has got it right and we don't. And I didn't consider that I was in a really cool position, to really like get to know myself, and what are some interests that I've never before, because I didn't think it was in the realm of my purpose.
Yeah, that's also a cool point of the comparison. Like you're saying, because you compared yourself with others, it kind of made you feel less than. But in reality, eventually you realize that you were actually in such a unique position because you were able to maybe try different things. And then eventually you got to one point where now you're more stable or more moving towards your purpose. Mm-hmm. And you can't compare yourself to other people or other people's past, because each one is completely unique and individual within themselves. So it's really like this process that we're walking with the Destiny I process. It brings the point back. It always brings the point back to yourself and who you are within what you're going to walk. Because maybe at some point in your life, you're going to be in a point like a job that is something that you define as, not where you necessarily want to be. But that job is going to open up points within yourself, skills are going to develop, and then you get to a point where you can get another job. Like there's always opportunities, there's always solutions. And if you kind of let go of the point of comparison and move into, okay, what are my options here? What's the opportunities that are open to me?
Absolutely.
That kind of supported me to through my own process of walking the same points you're talking about, comparing myself to others, and finally realizing that, okay, I need to stop doing this because I'm also able to create myself. I mean, there's many options available to me. Just open my eyes and look,
Exactly.
It's like right here.
Exactly. Well, so that was a big thing, was I, was so busy looking for something external as a purpose that I was looking so much outside of myself. My immediate reality in terms of the responsibilities that I had directly in my day-to-day living were being neglected. And it's like I was completely missing the opportunity that I had within those responsibilities to actually develop. And so for me, it was this point of, I need to perfect myself within what I'm doing now, with what I have now. As mundane or boring as I maybe have defined or judged it, that's completely irrelevant. The point is who am I within what I currently have and what's currently here for me. And the fact that I was, trying to look for something outside and something bigger and more, just implied that my relationship with my present reality was not in a position it should be in. And I had some work to do, and I had to move myself to really deal with, like, why am I resisting as it is, and what's currently here for me as my responsibilities, which are my potentials to develop. Who am I within my current responsibilities, and why am I not expanding within that? Because that's how you expand. You don't go straight for the existential layer. You have to start as a seed, and you nurture that, and you water that, and you grow that, and that's what expands that point. And so that was definitely a huge supportive realization, was that I have a lot of work to do within just my day-to-day living in terms of developing myself. And so for me, that's how I started to begin redefining purpose. It wasn't anymore about something outside of me that I had to be doing. It was about who I am within what I'm doing. It's that who I am point that really started to kind of come to surface as what I needed to be paying attention to. So that became my purpose, was perfecting the who I am, you know, in my day-to-day, the smallest, most significant moments, you know, that's where I, you know, could build the resolve and develop myself and my expression and my directive principle.
Right, cool. Yeah, because within doing that, within developing within yourself, your own self kind of walk, who you are within what you're doing, that will eventually build self-trust. So when you get to a point, like you said, it's like a seed. So you are a little seed, and then you walk and you learn and you go up and down and do all the points that you're going to have to walk to get to the goal that you're reaching. It's I lost my train of thought.
Well, it's I think it's so specific because, you know, purpose, I think in the collective consciousness of humanity, purpose was like this existential thing. It was like this bigger thing that existed like in the big world, you know, that was like bigger than your life in a way. And what Destiny is all about, and what Eqafe shares in, you know, so many different ways in all the interviews, is that you have to bring it back to self. So even this existential point such as purpose, or like some life plan or design, you have to bring it back to yourself. Like the point is to bring it back to yourself, and that is where, you know, that's what matters. So if you want to, you know, segue into that point, it's, you know, that's where it matters in terms of your purpose in this life. It's who you are, it's self, you know.
Yeah, because you can get lost in the kind of energy of thinking about your purpose. Okay, I'm gonna be this awesome, like, you know, enlightened, whatever path you want to take, enlightened guru, or superstar athlete, or whatever the point is. But each of those people that are at that point have walked a process to get there, and they develop themselves. So it's always who you are within what you're going to walk as your purpose, and also within that who you are, what are your principles, what is it that you are living within your life, because that's also a decision that each one has to walk within themselves and start to develop and live within who you want to be as yourself in this world, because that's going to create your life basically. So all this stuff is important. And let's segue into the kind of solution point that Anu started to get into, the word matter. How did you see that? And
well, for me it was like, it's almost like it's almost like, okay, I had this experience or understanding within myself of like this self-embrace, and how important it was to really be in a point of self-acceptance and like self-care. But I never had the word, you know, when he placed the words "I matter," you know, it was just like boom, boom, like that's it. Like it just like totally like was like, that is it. You can't get any more specific than those words "I matter" in terms of how I experienced myself throughout my process, and the moments when, you know, I needed myself the most, and when I needed forgiveness the most. It really felt like those were the words that could describe it. You know, it was me in a point of saying I matter, and I'm here, you know, for this life. And so it was amazing, you know. And it's, again, it's like that point of, it's so simple, the words are so simple, I matter, but like when you put it into this context and this understanding, it really has quite a voluminous effect, you know. It's just, I don't know, it just, again, it was like a cross reference, you know, for me. Like, yes, I know, like I need to care about myself enough to, you know, work on myself daily, and to forgive myself daily, and to forgive those around me daily, and to, you know, take responsibility daily. Like that's where, you know, it's most important for me to exist, and that's what matters in this world, is who I am. And if that's not my main focus, then to me, I'm wasting my time, and I don't matter, because I'm not caring enough to take a real self-honest look at myself and my life and how I impact my life and those around me.
Cool. Yeah.
What about you? How was it for you?
Yeah, so that is not the angle I took. I saw it more as like actually bringing it down to the complete physical, like here moment, and within that moment, it's like a point of cross reference for me to be able to remember to move into the physical and live a word in this moment that will expand me. So I use it as a remembrance to bring myself back to the physical and live a new word that is supportive.
Yeah.
And I kind of use the points that he went into of self-worth and self care and self-love and things like that. Those are points that I've been walking throughout my process for a while, because in my process through what I've walked through my mind, that's something I never really lived for myself. So I just use those words to bring into this moment here of kind of expanding myself in this real-time moment. Like, who am I going to be here? Okay, I can go into my mind and start going into the thoughts and the energy and how I'm such a bad person, and how, just go off in my mind, or I can bring myself back to the physical and live something different, live something new, live something more substantial. So that's kind of how I saw it, is like a cross-reference or a support to move myself real time.
Yeah, it's very multidimensional, that word I matter, because it plays in the context of, self, kind of like our self definitions, and our relationship with ourselves, but it is also exactly the physical, like the matter, like we are actually physical matter, and that ties in the whole equality and oneness of the principle that, we're walking in terms of understanding and living that realization that, like, we're all matter, we all matter. Physically, we're actually all substance. So yeah, it's a great point. And then also, in terms of, for me also, one of the big things that always stuck out for my process was doing what's necessary to be done. Like, don't postpone, like, give attention to what needs attention, as it comes up. And, matter also, you can also apply it in that context. Like, what's the matters at hand, like, what matters in terms of our attention and focus. And yeah, it's a great word in terms of its multidimensional, purpose.
Yeah, it is awesome. And we're coming up to close to the end of this hangout. Do you have any last things you want to share in terms of this interview, or anything we discussed, or any points you want to share to the world?
Well, the interview is really great, but it's only the first of a series of 4 at least. And so I would say, don't stop just at this first interview. Purpose has left the building, because it only is opening the door. It's only scratching kind of the surface, and whole series. And listening to the 3 follow-up, for me, I found they were so practical in terms of the different solutions in terms of how we can live this realization of I matter, and what that means, and how we can apply it. And so it's such a great series. I think it's two reptilians, and then it goes into 2 Atlanteans. So yeah, maybe we can share those links as well, because this interview is really just the beginning. It's not even, the whole story.
Totally. I'll place those links on the description part of this hangout for sure.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, cool. I don't know if I have any last words. One point I was going to bring up actually was when I went to the farm, I met Bernard Pullman, who is someone who walked this whole mind process. And I used to ask him, I'd be like, what do you see? Like, how do you see? And he'd always be like, I'm here. Like, I'm breathing. I'm here. Everything is here. So that kind of supported me to see, okay, where the action is and where I am within my purpose is here. Like, I can decide who I am in each moment. And just to bring it back to just this moment here, who am I going to be here? And it just kind of simplifies life in a way.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, and also I use like different tools, like setting goals for myself. So I have, 1-year goals and 5-year goals and 10-year goals. I don't have 10 years, but just like setting goals for yourself, so you do have a plan and you do have something to look towards and a vision for yourself of what you want to create. That's very supportive. And and also be flexible within your path in life and not get stuck on one way of seeing something, because something else might open up that is kind of like a sidewind, but it might bring you back to the same path. So kind of be flexible within your living day to day to, open yourself up more to opportunities and what's here that is, life has to offer, and who you are within that is really going to create your life and who you'll be and your purpose and things like that. So yeah, definitely listen to this interview and listen to the follow-up interviews if you are inclined, and it definitely will support you with these points of purpose and what we've been speaking about in this Hangout, these words. So thank you for watching. Kristina, thanks so much for being here and sharing your perspective. It was awesome.
Thanks for having me. It was fun. Let's do it again.
Definitely. Thanks all for watching, and I hope you have a great night. Good night.